Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to show quite an interesting oracle deck that was published about 7 years ago. That is the Oracle of Dr. John Dee. Here is the box. This was published by Connections Publishing in 2013, and it's quite an interesting oracle deck. And it's interesting because it's different, and it's also interesting from a historical perspective, and also for people who want to know more about John Dee himself. John Dee was quite an important ceremonial magician from the Elizabethan times in England. He was an English magician, and he very much influenced the Golden Dawn and people like Aleister Crowley. All of the well-known later ceremonial magicians were inspired and influenced by John Dee. So that's another reason why this is quite an important oracle deck. And this is by John Matthews, and the art engravings on the cards are by Kinghan. Here is the book, and it's got quite a well-known drawing of John Dee on the cover performing one of his magic rituals inside the circle. And many of the ideas and aspects and concepts of ceremonial magic that we recognise today are really based on the workings and ideas of John Dee. That is why anyone who is interested in magic, and especially ceremonial magic, really needs to know or should know more about John Dee. The background of the person himself, his times, and this oracle is about the life of John Dee. It does have an introduction. It has quite a good background about John Dee in here. I'll just show you what is inside the box. On the back of the box it shows here the book, the cards, and there is a sheet here, a gold paper sheet that opens out with the ceremonial reading symbol here. It's got the 4 directions because John Dee worked with the 4 directions, of course, and the 4 archangels. So all of these things are really recognised today, all from the workings and ideas of John Dee. This is ceremonial magic that we recognise today. So here is the book, and I'll show a bit about the book. I'll show some of the sections of the book, that the things that are in here. So first of all, there's the introduction, and it also includes Edward Kelly, because Edward Kelly was someone who worked with him very much to do with their angel work. And John Dee also basically created Enochian magic as well, which was a form of magic that Aleister Crowley particularly liked. So this is all based on the type of circle work and the 4 watchtowers in the 4 directions that John Dee worked with. This is on the gold sheet in the box for readings, and you have the additional center position here for the cards. So the whole idea of the 4 watchtowers for each of the 4 main directions, all of this comes from John Dee. Now it is sorted, it is organised into 7 main categories. You have the Magus cards, which are all of the magicians. You have the Alchemist, so these are the alchemists. The Astronomer, the Astrologer, the Geographer, the Physician, and the Historian. So these are all of the famous people. Some, and quite a few of these are contemporaries of John Dee. So it's divided into those 7 sections, 7 categories, and then within each of the 7 categories you have the 4 directions and the 4 elements. So you have the 7 categories with the 4 elements in each. So there's 28 cards. So that's 7 by 4, there's 28 cards. I'm going to show you about half of the deck. So for the Magus section, you've got the information about what the Magus is, and this includes John Dee in all of his different aspects in these categories as well. So for the Magus section, you've got the green Magus, who is John Dee. You have the red Magus, who is Edward Kelly. You have the gold. So you have red, green, red, gold and silver for the elements. The gold Magus is Johannes Faustus. So Faustus is from the famous story by Goethe. And then you have the silver Magus, who is Merlin. So that's just one of the categories. That's the first category of Magus. So that's how that is. And for each of the ones, I'll just show you for the Magus, the silver Magus, which is Merlin, you have a meaning for all 4 of the directions. So there is the main meaning here. You've got the picture for the card. And then you have got one for each of the 4 directions and one for the centre card. So there's like five paragraphs of meaning for each of the directions and like one in the centre. And then you have in another section here, so it goes through all the different sections with all the different meanings. And then you have information about the hieroglyphic monad, which is the symbol, the magical symbol that John Dee created, which is based on alchemy and astrology symbols. So this is also unique to John Dee. He invented the hieroglyphic monad symbol, which is also on the back of the cards. And you have got information here on the Enochian alphabet, the different letters. And then you have some examples of John Dee's evocations for the angels, for his rituals that he called calls. So there were different calls for each of the directions, and he recorded these in his diaries. So there's some examples in here of the different calls for the different directions of John Dee. So it's really, quite a useful book. I mean, it's a kind of thing, it's a kind of standard that you always get from John Matthews. So it's a great, I think it's a really good book. It's quite informative. So this is the book that goes with the Oracle. So I think now I will start to show some of the cards. The cardstock is quite good. I'm going to start with the gold cards. These are gold, silver, red and green for the elements. So the gold is the fire element. So here is the back of the cards, and it shows the hieroglyphic monad symbol on the back. Cardstock is quite good. It's got a matte finish. It's quite sturdy. So this is the gold astronomer. There's John Dee himself. So for people who don't know, astronomy is the more of the scientific study of the planets, the physical planets themselves, which is different to astrology, is a more metaphysical study. So this is the gold astronomer, knowledge of the actual planets and stars, the physical planets and stars in the sky. Gold astronomer John Dee. That's the picture on the book cover. And this is the gold magus, which is Johannes Forster's. As I was saying, this is the character created in the book written by Goethe. It's the gold magus. And gold is the fire element. So these have got an alchemical meaning more than the usual elemental meaning. These, just keep in mind that these have got an alchemical meaning for the elements. So this is the Silver Alchemist card, and this is Raymond Lull. He's the Silver Alchemist. And this deck is a great way to find out about these famous people, these historical figures. Silver astrologer John Dee. So he was an astronomer and an astrologer. So he was actually Queen Elizabeth I of England. He was actually her personal astrologer. So he was pretty good at making predictions, and in some ways he was too good at making some predictions that actually made the monarchy and her court, the court of Elizabeth, rather nervous, because some of the predictions were too accurate. So Silver astrologer John Dee. This is Silver Magus, Merlin. And Silver Physician John Dee. So he also knew about anatomy, human anatomy. So Silver Physician John Dee. And silver is the water element. So gold is fire, silver is water. So gold is also representing the sun and silver is the moon. Now, this one can get a little bit confusing, this elemental category. This is red for air, but this is from an alchemy perspective. So, red alchemist, John Dee. And you can see the colours at the top and bottom of the card, as well as the title. So, red alchemist, John Dee. Red astrologer, William Lilly. Quite a very important, well-known English astrologer. Red astrologer, William Lilly. Red astronomer. So this is the actual physical stars and planets. Red astronomer, Johannes Kepler. Very important figure. Red astronomer, Johannes Kepler. And red magus, Edward Kelly, who was a very important partner, magical partner of John Dee. Red magus, Edward Kelly. Now for the green element, which is earth. That one makes a bit more sense in the usual sense. So green astrologer, Robert Flood, another important English figure. So green is representing the earth. Green astrologer, Robert Flood. Green astronomer, the actual physical planets, Nicholas Copernicus. Copernicus is quite well known. Really like that card of Copernicus. And the last card I'm showing for today, green physician, Paracelsus. Another quite well-known figure. So the work of Paracelsus as the green physician led very much to the chemistry in medicine that's quite well recognised today. That's Paracelsus, green physician. Okay, so there's some of the cards from the Oracle of Dr. John Dee. And I think this is really interesting. I think it's very worthwhile for people who not only want to know more about John Dee, but all of these other really important historical figures who were also magicians or alchemists, astrologers, people who contributed greatly to the metaphysical genre that is so recognizable today. You know, all of these different aspects. John Dee is most known for magic and ceremonial magic particularly. But there are all of these other aspects of John Dee that a lot of people are probably not aware of. And these other figures are also very important. It's all part of the history, it's all part of why the magical, astrological, metaphysical, alchemical genre is now, why it became the way it is, and the important contributions of these figures. As an oracle deck, it's quite interesting too. I like this deck more for all of the really fascinating and important historical information in the book and about the figures, the people of the cards that are represented here, but it is interesting as an oracle. I like the special spread that represents the 4 watchtowers of the ceremonial circle. So I think this is still available. It should be available on Amazon. I'm not sure if it's still in print. It may be, but otherwise you should be able to get this on Amazon. So The Oracle of Dr. John Dee by John Matthews, and the art engraving drawings from Will Kinghan. So I'll put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.